Welcome to Diabetes Hope Channel, the channel where we educate you, motivate you, and encourage you to control your diabetes and probably reverse it. This is the place where you find hope. I am your co-host, Nyambura Madenge, and our host is
Wanjiko Dongo.
Welcome, Wanjiko Ndongo.
Thank you.
Please remind our viewers what diabetes is.
Dear viewers, in the last episode, we said that diabetes is a disease or a condition where the blood sugars are getting very high above acceptable limits.
True.
And we also discussed what are the acceptable limits in earlier episodes. So Kaidre, if you have not checked them out, it would be a good time to do so.
Thank you, Mwalimu. What do you have for us today?
Today, we want to get deeper into the disease process. And today we want specifically to talk about type 2 diabetes. The individuals who get type 2 diabetes, we said earlier, are usually adults.
Okay.
Although we are seeing younger and younger individuals get type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
There are individuals who would really like to know how this disease develops and establishes in the body.
Okay.
And I fully understand them.
Mwalimu, why do you say that you understand them?
I do understand them, Sarah, because I was in their very shoes 10 years ago.
Okay.
I was in that very position.
What do you mean by that?
As I had explained earlier about my mother,
Okay.
that time I used to test my mother's sugars.
Okay.
Somehow I had learned about the importance of hiring Dr. Mike,
Okay.
and I used to test my mother's sugars.
Okay.
And every time I would test her sugars, I would also test myself.
Okay.
Maybe I did so out of fear because I knew that this disease lands in families.
True.
And it was a question of when does it catch up with me?
Okay.
And therefore, as I tested myself, I realized that my fasting sugars are getting high, and I was very worried. I did not know what to do.
I can imagine. And so what did you do?
Sarah, you can imagine. As always, I started praying and asking God, what do I do? And then, as most people would do,
True.
I consulted Professor Google.
Uncle Google.
For me, he is Professor Google because he has a lot of information about many things, diabetes included.
Yes.
And therefore, for me, my search was on diabetes.
Okay.
And I got so much information.
I can imagine.
I did not just get information, I got very conflicting and confusing information.
Okay.
I did not know what to do.
Okay.
I did not know what to believe. Finally, I went into serious research by reading medical books and journals.
Oh.
And these, I found them also to be very complex.
Okay.
And out of experience, I realized that diabetics can easily get very confused by the wealth of information and knowledge that is available in very many channels where they go through.
True.
And having been a lecturer and a researcher, I found it very necessary to break up this information in a way that ordinary individuals with very basic education can be able to understand.
Wow.
Because the individuals that are getting diabetes are very ordinary people.
True.
And they do not know what to do.
Okay.
And when they go to these research stations, they may find it very difficult to understand the information that is there.
That is true.
And that is why I found it necessary to start this channel so that we can be able to explain in the simplest terms possible what happens when an individual takes a meal that has carbohydrates.
Okay. Walimu, I'm also eagerly waiting to know exactly what happens when a person takes or drinks a drink that has carbohydrates.
Now, when a person eats carbohydrates, for example, let us say the person may eat potatoes.
Okay.
The person may eat rice.
Okay.
And by the way, the rice can be white, it can be brown, it can be yellow.
Even the brown one?
It doesn't really matter.
But that's a healthy one.
That's what you may imagine.
Oh, okay.
But that is just an imagination.
Okay.
Now, what happens is that food goes to the stomach. And from the stomach, it goes to the large intestines.
Okay.
And from the large intestines, it goes to the small intestines.
Okay.
And it is in the small intestines that the blood sugars are absorbed, or glucose is absorbed into the bloodstream.
Okay.
And what happens is that once it is absorbed into the bloodstream, the glucose in the bloodstream rises.
Okay.
And immediately this happens, the pancreas senses that there is glucose in the bloodstream that is getting higher and higher and higher.
So what does it do after sensing that the glucose is high?
Now, the pancreas produces a hormone that we call insulin.
Okay.
Insulin is a hormone that regulates the sugars in the blood.
Okay.
So insulin comes in and it takes up all the glucose in the bloodstream.
Okay.
And it takes this glucose to the cell to be used as energy.
Okay.
But as usual, we do not just take glucose that can be used in the cell at that moment.
Okay.
We usually take a lot more.
Okay.
So the excess is taken by insulin and it is taken to the liver to be stored, and the other excess is also taken to the muscle cell also to be stored there to be used in the future, assuming there will be a future where it will be needed.
Okay, so meaning that we have two stores in the body, the liver and the muscle cells.
Yes, we have two stores that can store a lot of energy in the body, the liver and the muscle cell.
Okay, so what happens when the sugars are too high in the bloodstream?
Now, the body does not like high sugars.
Okay.
Because high sugars are very toxic to the cell.
Okay.
So if the sugars are too high, the excessive sugars, they have to be removed from the bloodstream.
Okay.
And they are stored in the liver and also in the muscle cell. This results in the sugar levels dropping, and the body is more comfortable because the sugars have gone down.
Okay, so what happens, we've talked about when the sugars are too high. Now, what happens when the sugars are too low?
Now, if the sugars get too low in the bloodstream, for example, let us say that we have stayed for a long period of time without eating, or we have been doing very vigorous exercises, the brain senses that the blood glucose is getting low, and it triggers a hunger response. So we get that sense that we need to eat, and we need to eat urgently. So the individual has an option to either look for food and eat, but still, you still have an option not to eat.
What if the person does not find any food?
Now, if the person does not find food to eat, the pancreas is going to sense that the sugars are low in the bloodstream. And the pancreas produces a hormone which is called glucagon. Now, this hormone targets the liver and the muscle cell. And it makes both the liver and the muscle cell to convert the stored glucose into energy. Remember, we have already said that the body stores glucose in the liver and in the cell. It is now time for that to be released back into the bloodstream so that the sugar levels can be regulated.
So is that how blood glucose is balanced in the body?
Exactly. If it is high, it is stored. When it is low, it is released.
Yes.
When the sugars are too high, we store in the liver.
Okay.
And also in the muscle.
Okay.
When they get too low, we go back to the liver and to the muscle, and we release the sugars that have already been stored.
Okay.
This ensures that the sugars in the bloodstream are neither too high or too low, because the body operates in a certain sugar balance.
Okay.
It does not like high sugars, neither does it like very low sugars.
Okay.
For example, the body does not like the sugars when they get below 3.
Okay.
And at the same time, the body does not like sugars when they go high above 10.
Okay.
Yes.
So what does this compare to in real life?
Now, in real life, we can compare this to a home.
Okay.
Generally, a lot of homes have a fridge,
okay,
and they have a freezer.
True.
We use the fridge for short-term storage, and we use the freezer for long-term storage.
Okay.
You see, Sarah, let's assume some visitors have suddenly come to visit you.
Okay.
And these are visitors that you really, really honor.
True.
What would you cook for them?
Chicken.
Chicken?
Yes.
Wow.
Chicken.
Dear viewers, get to know Sarah. She will cook you chicken when you visit.
Sure.
But let me ask you, Sarah. Assume you have 2 chicken.
Okay.
One is in the fridge and the other is in the freezer. Which one would you cook?
Because they have just come, then I would get the one in the fridge.
But why would you go for the one in the fridge?
Because it's not frozen. Hence, it's easier and faster to prepare and cook.
Now, in the same way, the body has 2 stores.
Okay.
It has the liver and it also has the cell.
Okay.
Now, when a person has stayed without eating and the body needs energy, it is easier for the body to get that energy from the liver.
Okay.
And the liver has capacity to store energy that can maintain the body for the last 24 hours.
Okay.
Yes.
So, does that mean that someone can stay for 24 hours without eating and will not die? Like you're telling me, your co-host, that I can stay for 24 hours without eating and I will not die. Viewers,
absolutely.
Mwalimu wants to kill the co-host. Really, 24 hours without eating.
Sarah, relax. The body has a lot of storage.
Where?
We have said that the liver has capacity to store energy that can take you for 24 hours. But remember, we also have the muscle cell. The muscle cell has capacity to store a lot higher energy than the liver.
Okay.
So what this means is that an individual can be able to stay for months without any major problem because they are accessing their fat stores in the muscle.
Months. Not even now, 24 hours. This is unbelievable. Months. In real life, that is not what happens.
What happens in real life, Sarah?
I know a person should eat 3 main meals a day and at least have 2 snacks in between.
You know what? That is a perfect way to make a person a diabetic.
Really?
If you want to become a diabetic,
no,
just eat that way.
Oh, me, I know that. Made 3 main meals and 2 snacks in between.
But let me ask you, Sarah, who made that rule?
I don't know. I just found it there when I was born.
I can assure you for a fact that rule can only benefit the seller of the food, but not the person who is eating it.
Okay.
Now, you see, if we eat every hour, every day, and we eat a lot of food, a lot of glucose is stored in the liver. And a lot of glucose is also stored in the muscle cell.
Okay.
Now, there is no opportunity to be able to use this glucose since we never let ourselves to get hungry.
Huh? Mwalimu,
Yes?
we are supposed to get hungry. Huh? And what happens when we never get hungry?
Now, you see, if we are always eating and eating and eating, it means we will not be able to use all that in the energy.
Okay.
So this brings about what we call a storing effect.
Okay.
We keep on storing and storing and storing without ever removing.
Okay.
So this makes both the liver and the muscle cells to be full of glucose.
Okay.
Until a time comes when they cannot accommodate any more glucose.
What do you mean by that?
Now, Sarah, we say that we can compare the liver and the muscle to the fridge and the freezer.
Yes.
If we keep on putting things in the fridge and in the freezer, and we put and we put and we put, and we do not have any moment to remove, what is going to happen? Logically, these things are going to get full.
Yes.
And when they get full, it simply means we will try to close the fridge and try to close the freezer, and they are not going to close.
True.
What happens?
The food will spoil.
The food will spoil.
That is so true.
Now, in the same way, the liver and the muscle cells, too, they have their own limits.
Okay.
There is how much you can put in the liver. There is how much you can store in the muscle cell.
Okay.
But they also reach their limits.
Okay.
And when they reach their limits, they cannot take any more glucose.
Okay.
Now, what this means is that the glucose will start triggering out the bloodstream because it has nowhere to go. And the person is still eating and eating and eating.
True.
So the glucose goes to the liver, and the liver saying, I don't need you.
Yeah.
Then the glucose goes to the muscle cell. And what does the muscle cell say? No, I do not need you. So what happens? This glucose just triggers and triggers in the bloodstream.
Okay.
And when this happens, it becomes toxic to the cell. Remember, it goes high.
Yes.
And when it goes high, it starts becoming toxic to the cell, and the cell does not like it.
Okay.
Then we start feeling unwell, and we start having the symptoms of diabetes.
Oh, really?
And at that moment, if you test that person, you are going to see that the sugars are high in the bloodstream.
Okay.
And why are they really high in the bloodstream?
Because they have nowhere to go.
They have nowhere to go.
Sugar doesn't have anywhere else to go because the liver is full.
Yes.
The two storages are full, the liver and the muscle cells.
So it goes to the muscle cells. The muscle cell says, no, I don't need you. Then it goes to the liver. The liver says, no, I don't need you.
So is that how diabetes develops?
Exactly. That is how diabetes develops. Okay. It is at this moment that you can be diagnosed with diabetes. Okay. This is because we test, the sugars are high. Yeah. We test, the sugars are high. Wow. We test, the sugars are high. The sugars have nowhere to go. Dear viewers, from this explanation, I believe you'll be able to appreciate the measures that one has to use in order to remove the sugars from these stores. Because in later episodes, we are going to explain how can we remove the sugars from the bloodstream. Okay. And the way to deal with sugars from the bloodstream is first of all to remove the sugars in the liver and to remove the sugars in the muscle cell. Okay. So once we are able to do that, we are then able to have an opportunity to add. Okay. It is just like what we have said about the fridge and the freezer. If the fridge is full and you want to add more,
there is no space.
It is common sense. Go to the fridge, first of all remove some food.
Yes.
Once the fridge is half full, maybe you can add some more.
Yes.
The same way with the freezer. If the freezer is full, you cannot add more.
True.
So the most logical thing to do
is
to go to the freezer and remove some things. Once you have removed, then you can have an opportunity to add some more.
True.
And in the coming episodes, we are going to help our viewers to know, how do I remove these sugars both from the liver and from the muscle cell. Yes.
Wow. Ooh, that was intense, but very important information, Mwalimu. Thank you very much. I have personally learned a lot, that I can stay for 24 hours without eating and I will not die. That I will try, and viewers, I will let you know whether, if you don't see me the next time, you will know I died from not eating for 24 hours. But if you see me in the next episode, then you know, yes, I am okay and I survived, and I will give you my experience. So I hope you are also encouraged by the information you are learning from this channel, and we hope that you will continue to join us in our next episodes as we go deeper into this topic. Thank you very much, and please remember to share, like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Bye. God bless you.